I'm going to give just a quick overview of where I feel like we're at as humanity and why this booth is perhaps relevant to that story. My background as a medical doctor began in the laboratories doing drug development for chemotherapy. This is 2005, where we were suddenly finding ourselves in a realization that we were in an exponential rate of growth of cancer in the United States and beyond. And the rates of leukemias, lymphomas, solid tumors were increasing so fast that our clinics were overwhelmed. The whole hospital systems were becoming overwhelmed with what we now call the chronic disease epidemic. And so I was at that front lines of starting to see that. And my work was working through not the human system, but actually the microbes within the human cells, which are the mitochondria. And so I was creating nutrient combinations that could work with the mitochondria to eliminate cancer. And it was a beautiful journey into realizing that nature had devised a pathway for us to be nourished into our health rather than poisoned into our health. And so it was a transition in my mindset, having been trained in a drug pharmaceutical model, of how I could become part of this miracle of life within a human being. And it became almost an infectious energy within my group and myself of like, what if we didn't have to poison anything? What if life was really the result of nourishment? And what I'm really speaking to there, in hindsight 20 years later, is the transition from a masculine archetype to a feminine archetype within each one of us. The masculine archetype a long time ago was tasked with this concept of protection. You have to protect and create the nest. And then the female can do what she needs to within that environment, but you're the protection. And as it turns out, that was a perturbation of reality, of nature itself. It is not the masculine that protects. It is at the cellular level always the feminine that creates protection. She does not do it through war, she does it through relationship and nurture. The immune system is not a battleground, as we have been told for so many decades and believed for so many centuries. A healthy human body is not a sterile human body. We now know it is an organic, connected, biodiverse system. And it's that biodiverse system that allows for hyper-intelligence to transform physics into biology. Biology is ultimately a concentration of light energy from physics. The brightest thing that physics does is a sun. We call them stars. These stars burn energy through nuclear fission and fusion, and they're phenomenally beautiful, and they do a lot of good, but they don't create life. They have no capacity to create life because it's not enough energy per cubic centimeter to allow life to self-materialize. To create a single-celled organism, the very first bacteria, you have to get 1,000 times more light concentration per cubic centimeter than physics is capable of doing. One cell bacteria burns 1,000 times brighter than the surface of the sun per cubic centimeter. That's a crazy statistic. But it tells you how complicated it is to get matter to materialize into a coordinated system of life. The reason I can look at you is because you are using all of that solar energy to produce you. You are the materialization of sunlight. Sun moves to particle, just as Einstein told us, it's either wave or particle. What makes you particle is being witnessed, to be seen by something. And it is in that witnessing that the waveform becomes a particle. You need so much waveform to particleize enough energy to become human that it was waiting for its innovation about 2 billion years ago in the timeline that we understand it for the mitochondria to come along. The mitochondria allowed multicellular creatures like you to come along because they were 10x more efficient than fermentation at creating energy. All these fermented foods that are on the floor here, they're taking advantage of the opportunity to concentrate light energy from the work of bacteria and fungi and yeast to ferment the food, do the work to transform that food into a higher energetic level. 10 times more efficient than fermentation is respiratory biology, which is allowed for by the mitochondria. Mitochondria allowed a 10,000-fold increase in concentration of sunlight to occur. You burn 10,000 times brighter than a sun. You put that into physical form to create the beauty of you. So when somebody in a new age way comes along and says, you're just a light being, they could not be more accurate at the scientific level. You are a light being. You are only a being in physical form because you had enough light. In 1976, we began the journey of destroying the light within humanity. And we did that by putting a chemical in our food system that disrupts the mitochondrial membrane so it cannot take long-chain carbon, which are the best batteries in nature. We call them sugars or fats, but they're just long carbon batteries that store sunlight. The mitochondria break the carbons apart, release the sunlight, and for that concentration of light that emerges, you can order life. In 1976, we added glyphosate to the food system. At that moment, we started to decrease the light energy within the human being. So we are now in our second generation of children born in a dimming humanity, a dimming biologic process. The third generation gets born this year. A generation is measured in 25-year periods. In 2025, the third generation of glyphosate babies will be born on this planet. What we saw in those first two generations is a terrifying reality. It began 5 years after glyphosate was added in the form of obesity. The obesity epidemic started in the United States 5 years after the introduction of glyphosate. Glyphosate disrupts the membrane or the mitochondria, so it cannot use glucose or carbohydrates or fats to turn to sunlight. All of those calories are still there, they just can't be turned to sunlight, and so they have to return to the liver and be stored as fat. Obesity is the process of a backup of workforce at the mitochondrial level. You can no longer do the work to convert to sunshine, so you got to go store that potential light somewhere else in the form of fat. By the late 80s, you have the consequences of the type 2 diabetes epidemic. Type 2 diabetes is the result of fat concentration in the liver. You get insulin resistance. Now you have a twofold dimming of the lights of humanity. The insulin doesn't work to get the carbohydrate into the cell, and even that which does get into the cell can't be burned by the mitochondria. So by the time you're in the late 1980s, we have a double block on the sunlight released from human biology. By the early 1990s, we start to see the ramifications in our relationship to nature at the immune system level. Suddenly we had allergies to dust, pollens, food types, gluten, which we'd been consuming and breathing since the beginning of our origin as humanity. And suddenly we could not tolerate the planet we were born into because we had lost the energy it takes to stay in relationship. Anybody ever been in a human relationship? Has anything ever taken more energy than that? That's the phenomenon of being in a relationship, is it takes 10,000 times 10,000 times more energy than the sun to maintain the damn thing. It's nearly impossible. And now, for generations, you put antibiotics into the food system that decrease the energy available for relationships at the immune system level, and the immune system becomes its own problem. At the beginning, it was allergy, which is the immune deficiency or the relationship breakdown to the outside world and your body. By the mid-1990s, late 1990s, that turned itself on itself, and we developed the autoimmune epidemic. By 2002, 1 in 4 girls in the United States, autoantibodies to her thyroid by age 12. 25% by age 12 is destroying her own thyroid gland. Now you have a threefold dimming of the lights. Not enough thyroid to drive metabolism, not enough insulin function to get the carbohydrate into the cell, not enough mitochondrial force to get it back into sunlight. So we had a threefold diminishment in the light of human beings by 2005. By that time, 95% of our soybeans, 85% of our corn crop genetically modified for Roundup Ready production. We now have 30 crops that have been genetically modified to handle this glyphosate toxin into the system. Today we pour 4 billion, with a B, 4 billion pounds of Roundup and glyphosate into our food and water systems globally. The rain that is falling outside right now has about 10 parts per billion of Roundup in it. That's enough to disrupt mitochondrial membranes, cell membranes, gut membranes, blood-brain barrier, kidney tubules. Unfortunately, this single molecule is only the gatekeeper for the rest of the toxicity that comes behind glyphosate. In the United States, we are now growing triple GMO seed. The 5-chemical seed has now been approved by the EPA and is going into growing. We've been growing 3 chemicals since 2018. 5 includes the 3 mentioned, plus Liberty Link, which is glyphosate, which blocks fertility at the fundamental level of amino acids. And then you get the deeper one with dicamba, which is a direct carcinogen as well. So you got a 5-seed chemical process. And the reason farmers are having to do that is because all of the weeds that they're trying to kill have become resistant to the glyphosate that we overused in those previous decades. So we stand at a crossroads in human history where by 2025, the thyroid gland is being shut down in the female. 5th chakra, communication chakra, inflammation here. The feminine needs to raise its voice, but it's destroying its own 5th chakra. The autoimmunity is against itself. By 2008, the cancer epidemic is fully upon us by that time. In the following 4 years, we would see the biggest explosion in infertility in human history. By the time 2010 rolled around, 1 in 4 women were infertile in the United States from just polycystic ovarian syndrome, not to mention all of the other causes. Sperm counts fell 60% between 1980 and 2010. In 30 years, we saw a 60% decrease in sperm counts. Today, 1 in 3 males on the planet is infertile by sperm count. And so we look out here in the world of this expo, and we see a bunch of hopeful technologies that are going to biohack our way into health. And our premise at ION is that there is no technology that comes along to improve on a technology that can concentrate sunlight at 10,000 times better than a sun. You are the highest technology on this earth. You may be the highest technology in solar systems and galaxies counted over. You are an extremely high technology that has been dumbed down by the chemical belief that you are not enough, and neither is your food. We have to reconnect humanity to light, and it's becoming very unlikely, which is always the best story. It is at the gates of Mordor that we get that inspirational talk, and he rides his horse down, spears clashing. We may see someday the end of mankind. It is not this day. It is not this day, because look at all of you. You guys are too bright to let this happen still. So we need to reverse the pattern, and we need to become bright again as a species. I would not have told you all of that dismal story. Honest to God, I would have just let the extinction happen if I didn't think there was a way out of it. There's a great scripture that says, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow you shall die. It's a damn good scripture to live your life by. But the reality is there can be another day. And we will die at some point, but let's die bright. Let's die connected. Let's die seeing each other. Let's die in joy that we lived a good life connected to nature within us and around us. And we saw the best of nature, not out in a waterfall, but in the human across from us. And it was in their eyes that we remembered why we're here. And we're here to light each other up. And the story of the promise of nature came in with this intelligence of nature in 2013. The science of ION is taking us on a path where we will realize that it is a fallacy to believe that nature needed help. Nature needed supplementation to nourish her children. That is a fallacy that is so dark. She loves you so much that she would put the promise in her soils that long ago that would reconnect your cells to begin the journey again and brighten your future. Within 5 minutes of putting ION on the cell membranes that we were studying in 2013, we saw unexplainable biology leap out from underneath our microscopes. We saw life becoming more vital, not less, with every insult we gave it. ION is the unfettered access to communication for the cellular system. ION is the communication network for repair and regeneration that nature planted in her soil system so that every earthworm, every nematode, every lion in the jungle would have the access to enough light to manifest the beauty of the divine within us. The soil carries the code for brightness. And so we are inviting you into an invitation back to yourself. When you begin the journey of a few times a day, nourishing your gut lining, which will become a gut lining again as soon as ION hits it, you move from leaky gut to restoration of tight junctions within 3 minutes. The mechanism of action of tight junctions is very exciting, and it's a lesson to us in this journey back to relationship. As soon as you turn the lights back on, which happens in just a few minutes as mentioned, because the mitochondrial membrane potential improves nearly immediately when touched by these molecules. The mitochondrial potential goes to zero within minutes of 100 parts per million of glyphosate. At a typical level that you see in the rainfall, you lose about 50% of your brightness at the mitochondrial membrane. Once ion is on the membrane, you don't return to normal. You return 30% better than normal. The promise of nature is, I will love you so much that every injury you create will make you stronger, not weaker. Ion is a pathway into understanding the grace of nature and guiding us back to a food system that is devoid of the chemicals that would dim the lights on humanity. We are here literally to plug back into nature. The science of this product is literally pointing us not towards a supplement future, but towards a food future, toward a future of nourishment in which we receive nature back in our bodies to burn brighter next year. And so Ion is your beginning of that journey to discover how beautiful you are. You are brighter than you can imagine. You are here to do more magnificent things than anybody's given you perhaps the credit for or the capacity to imagine into. And so in my own life, I've tried to surrender all attitudes towards manifestation or intention. 1990s was intention board. 2000s were the manifestation board. 2025 is demanding radical transformation. And I don't have the ability to imagine just how good this can get because I haven't seen it yet with my human eyes. This earth can be more verdant, have literally more trees and grasslands across the surface of the earth within 20 years than has ever existed on the planet combined. I will repeat that. There can be more acreage of grasslands and trees on the planet in 20 years than have existed in the culmination of all of the history past. How is that possible? It is possible because oil companies for the last 60 years have been pumping enormous amounts of fossil carbon up into the surface of the earth, into our atmosphere through the cars you drive. We will look back, if we make it through this next 100 years of extinction possibility, we will look back in 1,000 years and say the most important contribution humanity made to the planet was our ability to get oil out of the ground. And then we turn that oil into soil. And when oil nations become soil nations, you will see the most verdant planet that has ever happened because we will learn to live within the carbon cycle that drives the accumulation and concentration of sunlight within biology. Ion is taking us on a journey not towards human survival, but to planetary revival. This is the time we are in, and you are very fortunate to be alive right now. You are very fortunate to feel the pain of diminishing light in your own biology. You are carrying the weight of a dimming biology. You are carrying that in your mind with depression, anxiety, insomnia, sexual dysfunction. You're carrying it in your gut in the form of that stored calorie that can't get to the mitochondrial release of the sunlight. You're storing it in the very vessels of creativity that we call the sperm or the ovum. We carry so much weight right now for the dimness that we burn at. Ion is taking us back on a pathway to vital regeneration. We begin that at the cellular level with each of you. And so I want you guys to make a promise to yourself that for 1 week you will just do what the hell the bottle says, which is take it 3 freaking times a day. Take it 3 times a day. I want you to light up for 1 week and do not hold me accountable for the results. Because your life will change. Because you cannot believe how clear things get when you burn brighter. You are likely in the wrong relationships to your companies, to your products, to your own imagination. Light up for a moment and realize, oh my God, that's hilarious. I thought that was important last week. Light up and realize, oh my God, I thought that was somebody else's problem last week. I thought that was somebody doing that to me last week. We are doing this to ourselves so that we can find the beauty within us. It is time to find the divine within you, so turn it on. 3 times a day, make a promise to yourself to light up. As soon as you swallow that, I want you to experience something no humans have ever experienced, which is the light capacity of soil that's 60 million years old. The soils at that time were 30 feet deep on the surface of the planet. We are lucky to find 30 inches of topsoil on the planet. 30-foot deep humus layers of soil on the planet. Humans had not seen this level of intelligence because we've only been here 300,000 years. So every time a new person grabs a bottle of Ion, I get goosebumps of like, that person's going to do something no human's ever done before. They're going to light up, and they're going to light brighter, and we're going to see tight junctions and reparations and restorations of cellular function more than we have ever seen before, because nature has grace built into her fabric, and that fabric is the soil. And so this is our future together. Our company has seeded a huge nonprofit globally now. Project Biome is off and running. Farmers Footprint was with us at the booth last year, if you got to see us there. Farmers Footprint is our direct-to-consumer activation. It's for each of you to become that soil master in your life, to reconnect deeply to the nourishment so that the supplement industry can go away. These people need to do something better with their time. We need to be actually just painting and making music. And I'm so excited for AI because we frankly just need to outsource most of the crap we've been doing. It was stupid. We need to be more creative. AI can unleash the human potential if we will light up, or AI can distract us into our death. AI is not the technology I fear. The technology I fear is laziness of the human mind. We have to kick in now. And I want to stay and play with you, so I'm so honored to be doing it with you. Please ask more questions. The Ion Plus line is showing us this pathway into nourishing your body in new ways. This is what I would call the sledgehammer approach to human health. Every booth here is going to tell you they have more of something in their stuff than the guy next door. Higher vitamin D levels, more magnesium. This is the most supercharged selenium on the planet. This one is nanoparticleized. This one is liposomal. Who the knows what that is? It means that basically they're desperately trying to get you back into relationship with nature, and they forgot that the soil was between those two elements. Ion has showed us that we need to return to nature dosing the body. Nature dosing is the phenomenon of providing nourishment at the level of trust. Nature trusts that a little bit of her is plenty for you. And so she put a little bit of everything into the food you eat. Right now you cannot access that, and nor can the plants, because they don't have enough of the carbon molecules that carry the nutrients from one compartment to the next. Ion is those carbon molecules that ferries the nutrients from the soil to the plant root, from the plant root to the fruit, from the fruit to your gut, from your gut lining to the bloodstream, from the bloodstream to the cell, from the cell to the mitochondria, from the mitochondria into sunlight. That's a lot of disconnect. We are so distanced from the brightness of the soil because of the lack of these carbon molecules in our farming, ag, food system. And by doing nature dosing, our sleep, brain focus, and immunity products are showing you what it feels like to be nourished by the subtlety that she intended. Nature has created such a symphony, but she does it through such gentle notes within every single thing that carries health. My field of Western medicine is notorious for the sledgehammer approach. And we want your biology to change today, so here's a blood pressure medicine that will lower your blood pressure tomorrow. And you will feel like crap, and it will take away your drive for life, and you will be exhausted, you will be fatigued, you will have no sexual function, but for God's sakes, your blood pressure is lowered. We have to stop sledgehammering ourselves into death. The supplement industry is guilty. In 2011, we published the largest human clinical trial done in history, and it happened to be around the work of nourishment or nutrition. The Women's Health Initiative, 125,000 women for 25 years were enrolled, and those that were on a form of multivitamin, any form of USP multivitamin, had a 9% increase in mortality over the women that were not on a multivitamin. 9% increase in mortality is worse than smoking, worse than asbestos, worse than any of the things we've gotten afraid of in this life. Multivitamins, 2011. How many megadose multivitamins are in here that are selling 10 to 100-fold the nutrient delivery that we saw in 2011? It's a terrifying industry that is really driven by marketing, not logic. Marketing, not science. We need to back off and let nature do her wonderment. She is gentle, she is graceful, and she is full of power. And so we are here to reconnect you to that. I invite you to get some sleep in this next week. At least one of your doses 3 times a day can have that sleep at the end of the day. Instead of that chocolate-infused CBD, THC, cacao thing up there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you could simply reconnect your brain to the nourishment of nature. And so the brain focus at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to feel like what it feels like to be loved back into your attention rather than drugged into your distraction. Get replugged in, get your brain turned on, sleep well, and nourish your body for a week. That's all I ask, and see where you go from there. I'm honored to be with all of you. We'll take a couple questions and then we'll cut you loose.